Hi, and welcome to episode 63 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Monday, the 23rd of January 2017, and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown on Ravelry, Instagram, Pinterest, and it's the name of my Etsy shop where I sell project bags, needle holders, and various things. For any new viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. And for returning viewers, I'm sorry about the big delay in putting an episode out. I had unexpected computer failures over the holidays, and then the computer that I ordered took a bit of time to arrive. And I've noticed that there's a strange black blob in the top corner up there. Uh, Not much I can do about it right now, but now that I've sort of spotted it, I will try to get it rectified before the next episode. Hopefully I don't have to send my computer away to get fixed, but I'll see what I can do. I might be recording fortnightly for the next little while, but I think by the end of February I should be back to weekly recordings. And considering it's a new computer that I'm trying to make friends with, if there are any issues with audio quality or video quality, then please let me know. I'll be testing it out on a few different devices, but it's always good to get feedback if there are any issues with the podcast. So I have quite a lot of things to show you because it's been a while since I last recorded. And I forgot to mention that I'm coming to you from the central west of New South Wales in Australia, just in case you were wondering. So, on with the show. My first of quite a few finished objects is my scrappy sockhead hat. So the sockhead slouch hat is a free pattern on Ravelry by Kelly McClure, and I've knit this before with just a yarn, a single coloured yarn, and did the slouch version, which I absolutely love, and I wore it a lot last winter. But I've been a bit obsessed with stripes recently, so I decided to do a scrappy version using up some scraps from my own projects and also ones that had been sent to me. I knit 3.5 inches for the brim, about 6 inches of stockinette, and then I did the decreases just to get a slightly less slouchy version so that I've got one slouchy one and one less slouchy one. So this one I can wear with the brim up, and there's not much slouch there, and I can also wear it, scruffy hair, I can also wear it with the brim down, and then there's a little bit of slouch to it. So I really like how it turned out. I like the colours. I had expected to do a pretty wild socket hat, but just somehow I gravitated towards these particular colours, and I really like how it turned out. So I'm looking forward to wearing that, but I think I'm going to be waiting a while because we're having some very hot days out here, but it is summer, so it's to be expected. All up, it weighs 54 grams, so just over half a skein, and I thought it was a great use of scraps. My next finished object are my Christmas Eve cast-ons. So this was it's a bit of a tradition now with little bobbins doing a Christmas Eve cast-on, and everyone gets involved and shares their socks and socks on Instagram. So this was my pair. I knit these with some yarn from the House of Wool, which is a yarn shop in Blackheath, and they dye their own yarn. And it's in the Wallaby Moss and Quarry colourway, and it has stellina in it. So you might be able to see just a little bit of sparkle in there. And it's the first time that I've knit something proper with a stellina yarn. I'd only ever used it in a square or two on my sock yarn blanket. So it was interesting to try it out. I didn't notice it while I was knitting. It didn't bother me at all because I've heard that some of the sparkle yarns can be a little bit fiddly to work with. But I didn't have any problems, didn't even notice that it was there, but it was fun watching the sparkles while I knit. I don't think I'm a complete convert to sparkle yarns. I don't think I'll necessarily buy it for myself in the future, but I might knit it for other people who are very sparkly themselves and would appreciate some sparkle in their socks. I think overall though it turned out well. So this is the Mercury Socks pattern by Kim Drota. It's a free pattern available on Ravelry and quite a few people have been doing it recently. And I really enjoyed it. What I did was I did the 60 stitch, I think it was the 60 stitch version or the 60 stitch I think. I'll pop it down there somewhere to confirm. And I used 2.25mm needles. And as I started knitting, I noticed that I was getting the striping effect with the yarn. So I decided that rather than see what happened with a normal gusset heel and it would disturb the stripes, sort of stripe sequence because there's extra stitches around the instep, I decided to do my first afterthought heel, which I've been meaning to do for a while. So I continued along and popped in a bit of waste yarn where I was going to put the heel. And I then went back and did a bit of research online and found this sort of heel, and I'm forgetting now what it was. I don't think there was a particular name for it, but it's kind of like a star toe where you have decreases at a number of different places, and it fits really, really nicely. I think it was 9 rows of stockinette before I started the decreases, and it sort of cups the heel very nicely. So I'm really happy with the construction of that heel. And I've written up the notes for how I knit it in my Ravelry projects page if you're interested in trying it out sometime. I don't know if there's too much more to say about these. No, but I'm happy with them. I haven't particularly worn them yet because it has been very hot, as I mentioned, but I think that these are going to be my special Christmas socks. So next year for Christmas and in the lead up, I'll be wearing these a fair bit because of the sparkle, and they're fun and I like the stripes. And it was a beautiful yarn to work with, so I'll definitely be popping by the House of Wool again when I'm next going through the Blue Mountains. My next work in progress, no, my next finished object rather, is a big one. So this is my Taskutakki, which is a cardigan by Veera Välimäki. And I've talked about it a lot in recent episodes, but it's finished and it's very hard to show. So what I will do is I have been able to figure out how to put some pictures on screen while I talk because my old computer wouldn't let me do that with the software that I had. So I will put some pictures while I chatter about this. So this project was knit with Miss Click Clack yarn in the Nightman's Highway base in the Junkyard Dog colourway. And I used 350 grams for the body and I had 4 skeins, so a bit over 400 grams all up because Miss Click Clack tends to do slightly over 100 gram skeins. And I got a little bit worried that my sleeves weren't going to be long enough. So what I ended up doing was I started knitting both of the sleeves just to sort of see how far I could get, and I realized that I was getting close to the elbow, but I didn't want to have the sleeves stop just after the elbow because I was worried they might curl a bit. So I ended up calculating an appropriate number of rows of ribbing and made sure that the ribbing was going to finish just before my elbow joint. And I ended up doing a third of the stitches of the sleeve in ribbing, which is the same sort of proportion as was used for the 3/4 length sleeves that the pattern was written for. So I'm really happy with how this cardigan's turned out. It fits wonderfully well. I had no issues with the yarn whatsoever with the alternating skeins or what have you. I think it turned out beautiful considering that I couldn't alternate throughout the whole project just because of the construction. And when I washed it, I didn't have any issues with dye running off from the yarn. It is huge, as you can see, but it is so cozy and wonderful and warm, and it's going to be a staple in my wardrobe for the next winter. I'm really looking forward to spending a lot of time wearing it while I'm working, because it leaves my hands free without having the sleeves in the way when I'm sewing and when I'm knitting. So absolutely love that project, love the yarn. The pattern itself was a little bit quirky. I was using the finished version of the pattern, and there were some sort of expectations that you kind of could sort out and figure out what was going on. So if I would knit it again, I would make the front panels, I would make the increases on the front panels quicker. So if you happen to be working on it, then try and do that. It will mean that the quantity of yarn used would be less, and if I'd have done the increases quicker on the front panels, then I would have been able to have sort of 3/4 or full length sleeves, but I'm happy with it as it is. So my next work in progress is my sock yarn blanket, and I've been trying to keep up with my 1 square a week, and I took a picture of the sock yarn blanket, so I'll put it in here. I've added 4 squares since I last showed you. So 1 square there is the House of Wool yarn that I use for my Mercury socks. I've also put in a square of the Miss Click Clack Melbourne Black that I use for my Scrappy Sockhead hat. I've put in a square of Online Sock, which I started a pair of socks with just before Christmas Eve because I couldn't wait to cast on another pair of socks, but I'm still working on those socks, so I sort of pinched it from the other end without having finished the project, but I think that's okay. And I had a little bit of leftover yarn from the Daskutakki cardigan, so that is the Junkyard Dog from Miss Click Clack that's in there. So there's 120 squares, I think, now in my blanket, and I'm thinking about sort of which direction to go in now. And I think I'm just going to increase the length of it so that it's sort of a one-person cozy blanket, but we'll see. It's a fun project, but I do want to do a crochet granny stripe blanket as well, so I'm kind of itching to get that started, but I don't want to start it until I finish this one, so it may be a never-ending project, but we'll see. So I have also been working on trying to remember a new project. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen that I cast on a new pullover, and this is called Free Spirit, and it's a paid pattern by, and I'm sorry about the pronunciation, Anna Maria Oetves, maybe. I'll put it in there for you. And it's a stripy pullover. It's quite clever in that the pattern gives you all the striping sequences. So you choose 5 different colors, and it tells you when to change. It gives you some tips on how to do the yarn management, because there is so much yarn management involved in this. And you probably would want to have done a stripe project or 2 before you started this, but if you follow the links to some of the videos and things, you could probably figure it out even if you hadn't. So this is the top section, and there will be a collar or a bit of ribbing going around the collar later on. I'm contemplating whether I put that in sooner rather than later, just in case I do run out of yarn. Hopefully I don't. And at the moment I'm just knitting down the body, and then I'll add some sleeves. It provides a couple of options for a longer body and a shorter body, and longer sleeves and shorter sleeves. So I'm just going to see how my yarn goes. I think I will definitely do the longer body version, but I might do the shorter sleeve version. So I'll sort of see how it goes. But I'm really enjoying working on this. Just being able to change colors so often is a lot of fun, and I like the way that these colors are playing together. So I've got a few different yarns in here. I have some Miss Click Clack in There's a Bear in There colorway, and this is leftovers from a pullover that I did last year, and some in the Oyster colorway, also from Miss Click Clack. I then have some Circus Tonic Handmade in the Western Whipbird colourway, and this is a really beautiful subtle greeny colour. I really, really like this colour. I had originally bought this one and another one from Circus Tonic Handmade to use in a pullover, but I ended up pinching the other skein to use in a shawl. So it's really nice to be able to get this into a pullover, but I'm going to have to stock up on some more Circus Tonic Handmade soon because I love her yarns. I also have a couple of new acquisitions. So Santa brought me some yarn. Accidentally forgot to bring them at Christmas, but they turned up in January, so Santa sort of realised Santa's mistake and delivered them to me. So Santa gave me a bit of a stack of Knit Picks yarns, and this is the Thunderhead Tonal in, I think it's a Stroll base, and this is also Stroll in the Stroll fingering in the Fedora colourway. And I've used the Knit Pick Stroll in a couple of squares on my blanket from minis that people had sent me, and I was looking forward to trying them out. So thank you, Santa, much appreciated. And I think that it's going to be a beautiful, soft and warm winter pullover. I'm also using some brand new needles on here, and I've realised that I forgot to bring my needle set over here, but I think I'll share more about them next time. But they're a set of higher sharps. They're an interchangeable set, so they're beautiful and sharp. I'm loving working on these. It feels like I'm knitting a lot faster over my Knit Pro Symphonies, which I do love. They've been a very good set of needles for me, but I think that I'll use these higher sharps for yarn that I want to slip quickly, and I'll use the Knit Pro Symphonies for yarns that I need a little bit more grip with. And I've also got a larger range of sizes in the Knit Pro Symphonies, so if I'm knitting bulkier things, then I'll probably use those. This set, did I mention Santa brought these for me? So they go from, I think it was 2.75 millimeter up to 4.5 or 5, and I was a little bit surprised that there are no connectors. So for the cables, there's no sort of connector things to put one cable after another, and there were no stoppers, so I can't take these needles off and put a little stopper on them like I can with my Knit Pro Symphonies. So I think that they're things that I can order separately, but it's just something to be aware of if you're looking at the different higher sets. They do have many different sorts, so some of them come with more attachments than others, I think, but I might need to order some of those from somewhere because I do, at the moment I can't try this on. I'm worried that I would drop some stitches off if I tried to squeeze myself in here while the needles are like this. I'd prefer to be able to attach another cable on and then I can try it on. So I'm hoping that this is fitting. But apart from that, absolutely loving using the highs. They're super light and I find that they work really quickly, and having no problems with increases and decreases and what have you, that they're super easy to use, the higher sharps. So I have also been thinking about my yarn goals for 2017, and I've set them up on my Ravelry profile page. That's what it's called. And I'll just run through them briefly. I'll just get my iPad just so that you know what I'm aiming for this year. And it might give you some inspiration, or you might have some ideas for how I can achieve some of these goals. So if you do, feel free to pop them in the YouTube comments below or contact me on Ravelry. So my 2017 yarn goals are to track the yarn going in and out of my stash. So with Santa being a little bit late with my Knit Picks yarns, my stash has accidentally sort of become very large all of a sudden because I've just started tracking anything that comes in from the first of the year. So I figure I can put my Taskotake cardigan on there as yarn going out, and I'll report back in the first episode of February to let you know how my yarn in and out is going. I want to publish a pattern on Ravelry, which is a carryover from last year because I didn't manage to do that. I want to try 3 new sock heel constructions. So the first of those was the afterthought heel that I tried on the Mercury socks. I want to knit a skirt. I want to knit a colourwork sweater. I want to buy and knit from a sock blank, and I want to order brown and or grey yarn from 3 indie dyers, because brown and greys are my favourite colours to knit with, so it'll be fun to go hunting around and finding those. I want to spin and knit a pair of socks. I want to knit a project with beads. I want to try freeform crochet. I want to do an intarsia project, a lace project. I want to steek something. I want to spin a cardigan quantity of yarn. I want to take part in a mystery knit along because I forgot to do that last year. I want to learn to knit without looking. And I found that with the higher sharps, I'm finding it a lot easier to knit without looking. So I've been watching a bit of tennis while I've been knitting in the evenings, and I'm able to watch the tennis and not look at my knitting. And I think part of that is just the slippiness of the yarn on the needles, and perhaps that I'm trying it with larger needles, because quite often I've tried it with sock knitting, which uses smaller needles. So I think having a slightly larger needle to sort of get familiar with knitting without looking is helpful. So I can do it for a few stitches at any given point in time, but I tend to be sort of looking up and down, and I want to be able to knit a longer stretch without looking. I want to learn English knitting, which again is a carryover from last year. I want to visit a craft fair or some kind of fibre festival or something, and there's not too many of those in Australia, but I'm going to try to get to something this year. And I want to write 2 blog posts a month about my yarn adventures, and my blogging has sort of fallen off since I started podcasting. So I have put 1 blog post up so far, which was about my yarn goals and what I achieved for 2016 yarn goals. And I'm now a little bit behind in getting that second blog post up for this month. But I'm planning to write about either the Mercury socks or my Baskutaki cardigan. So hopefully there'll be a new blog post up in a few days. And you can also find links to those from my Ravelry profile page. So I have also got some acquisitions, like I mentioned. So Santa very kindly brought me all sorts of wonderful goodies. So along with the higher sharps interchangeables, there's some wonderful yarns from Knit Picks. So there's some Knit Picks Felici, which is a self-striping, and there's a stroll fingering. My screen is backwards on this new camera, so I'm struggling to read. And then a bunch of different colours. So I think these are going to be great for toes and heels and cuffs on socks, and maybe some other little projects. So they're those. And then I have also had some more acquisitions because it's been a month and I had a bit of a holiday, so I might have been looking online a little bit for things to order. So I ordered from Exquisite Yarns over in Western Australia some high sharps. So these are 2.5mm in the 6" or 15cm. I had these as 2.25mm, but I figured that these US 1.5s were a good addition because I've been knitting a lot tighter with 2.25mm needles recently. So I figured that it's time to maybe try going up a needle size just to loosen up my knitting a bit. But along with that, I ordered this wonderful skein of yarn. I've been checking out her shop for a while, and I saw this one on Instagram and it just captured my heart. So it's very much sort of reds, oranges, and it sort of turns into browns in certain parts. So this is the card, Exquisite Yarns, and the shop is on Etsy. And this is called Date Night, Wine and Caramels in the Platinum Sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 425 meters in 100 grams. And I don't know what I'm going to knit with this yet, but the depth of the color in this is just absolutely stunning, and I'm looking forward to finding a special project for it. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And this is my first yarn purchase for the year. And Since then, she has reached out and offered up a coupon code for Give Me a Crown viewers. So if you go and check out her shop on Etsy, you can pop in the coupon code Give Me a Crown and you'll get 15% off your purchase. So that is valid until the 14th of July 2017, and I'm thinking about doing another order now to take advantage of that wonderful offer. So thank you, Exquisite Yarns. Absolutely beautiful, and I'm looking forward to getting something wonderful from it. I also made another purchase. So I have been trying to find some fibre, some merino nylon fibre in Australia for a little while, and I've been finding it very hard. I know that there are some out there, but either they're selling out really quickly or I'm just looking in the wrong places. But I saw that the wonderful Renanoli was having an update, and I had to get in on the action. So Mia is a wonderful person behind Renanoli, and I've spun some of her fibre before, and I've knit some of her yarns. So she's a wonderful dyer, and I'm definitely so super happy with these. So this one is called Once Upon a Star, and this one is called Electric Dreams. So they're 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and I will be spinning them up, and most likely they're going to turn into socks. I haven't spun with such an interestingly dyed fibre before, and I've been wanting to get my hands on something like that for a while, so I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't done much spinning since I last spoke to you. I did a little bit. My nieces came over and I was introducing the older niece, who's about, she's 10 years old. I was introducing her to the spinning wheel because she's become very fascinated with knitting recently. My mum or her grandmother taught her to knit just before Christmas, and she's knitting everything. She's been knitting purses and scarves and all sorts of things. So, and blankets for the cats and all sorts of things. So she saw the spinning wheel and wanted to give it a whirl, and we did some spinning together, and I've got a few orders now in for doing some spinning for her. But that's that spinning that we did, she took away with her, and I'm waiting to see what happens with it. But yeah, so I need to order some more fibre because she put in an order for purple, but I think I'd already ordered these at that time, so I'll have to find some purple from somewhere. But these are going to be amazing to work with, and I'll get them spinning soon so that I have some spinning content to talk to you about, because it's been a little bit of time since I last spun something for show and tell. And I think that's it. I feel like I've gone a million miles an hour because I was worried this episode would turn into an hour long, but it might yet. No, I will try. I always try to keep them to about half an hour. So I will share whatever I've forgotten to share next week. And I hope that 2017 has been off to a good start for you, and that it's not too hot or not too cold and not too wet or not too windy wherever you are. My vegetable garden has been growing, so I will put some footage in of how my vegetables are going. I've been getting lettuce from the veggie patch. I've eaten a couple of tomatoes and a couple of strawberries, and trying very hard to get things growing, and it's experimenting, and it's fun. I don't think I'll ever sustain myself off a veggie patch. It would be lovely, but yeah, I like my variety in my food, so it's fun to try it. And my herbs haven't done too well in the hot weather, so I'm looking forward to winter when my herbs will be a little bit happier, hopefully, maybe, considering it was very cold here last winter. Anyway, I'll be planning better with more seasonal sort of attempts at growing things, I think, this time like this over the next year. I will leave it there and wish you well, and I'll see you soon.